Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well and welcome to Custom Carving and Epoxy UK Live this Tuesday evening or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. And tonight is a special one. We've got Laura on. So Laura Bemos from Laura's, is it Design Studio, Laura?
Correct. Yes, Design Studio.
We've got Laura to thank for last week's live as well, because Laura reached out to Michelle from Glitz and Glitter to help set it up. So firstly, thank you for that.
No problem.
And then I spoke to Laura and I said, well, would you like to come on a live? You know, you've got a YouTube channel and you do resin art. So it'd be great to get to know you. And she had the great idea to talk about a topic which I think is important to everyone, which is mental health as well. So, but before we go into that side of things, Laura, I've done a bit of research and I know you've got loads of stats for later, so I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, your channel has been going for about 4 years, I think, when I looked back.
Yeah, I started out as a resin channel. I was doing resin prior to that. I started out as a resin channel and then I went to being a reseller and I hated it. And so I came back to the one thing I love, which is resin.
Was that those sort of reseller videos where you see them go around sort of flea markets, I think you call them in the US, and charity shops and then reselling them on?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those in the UK, which seem to blow up. It's crazy.
They do, but the community there is very, not like this one. It's very competitive, very backstabby, very,
Oh dear.
And I just was tired of dealing with it.
Well, I've done a bit of that over the years on the side, but I've never done YouTube videos on it, if I'm being honest. And the thing is with me is the most popular platform that I've used for it is things like eBay. And the problem I've had is about 30% of the items that I used to do it with reselling, I think people try and scam you to get a refund and get free items is what I found. And then I was always left out of pocket for the postage.
Yeah, I did have an Etsy shop at one point.
Yep.
When I was doing resin, and then I shut it down when I started doing reselling.
Yeah.
And I did have an eBay store also. And I did do some reselling on there, but it was I made most of my money doing lives. So we would just go on, whether it be just me or me and somebody else, or sometimes I've had up to, I think one night I had 20 people on for my 420 show.
Wow. Okay.
And we just rotated them through. And that, I mean, that was the main income right there, was doing live shows where people just bought right then and there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen a few of those, and I think there's a few different platforms where it's almost like an auction setting where they can actually sell online. So it's really interesting. And there's some people that can do that as a full-time living, which I think is amazing. But
yes,
I think you've got to be able to get enough stock in to get it out, I think.
Yeah, and it wasn't a problem of getting the stock because we always had that. It was a problem of you're always trying to find that time pocket when there's nobody else in that category on, or at least not one of the huge people on. Because I mean, there are some huge resellers out there.
Yeah, I've seen, and it's amazing the views they get on the videos as well when they're just walking around a flea market, as you'd call it in the States, or a car boot, as we call it in the UK. But it is amazing the bargains to be had. And if I get a chance on a Sunday in the UK, it's the best time to go and look at a car boot sale. And I always do it because you'll be surprised at what bargains you can find.
You never can. I mean, I'll have to do a video on it because I actually bought off of eBay a domino set. I'm an expert in dominoes, just so you know. Collection wise.
Have you made any in resin though?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that was my very first sell, was dominoes, a custom set of dominoes. Bear, you cannot be up here.
Okay.
Oh Lord have mercy. Yes, we have Bear who thinks that he has to be in on every video.
Oh, he's gorgeous.
He's my smallest one.
Right. How many do you have?
3.
3.
They're,
My
they're
little
all
girls have got.
brothers from the same litter. Watched all of them
Wow.
being born.
Yeah, my little girls have got 3 cats at their mum's house, and then they get the best of both worlds because then they've got Reggie here, so they get a
Right.
dog here and cats there, so it's perfect.
I love Reggie.
Yeah, he's great. He's such a character. Don't get me wrong. There's times when he really winds me up. So this morning, I took him for a walk, 5 o'clock in the morning, as I always do, because I have to go into the office and I want to make sure he gets a good walk. And every time he sees another person, he thinks he's Tigger. He just starts bouncing up and down. And I thought he was going to start calming down now because he's about 1.5 years, but he still hasn't.
No, my Reggie looks pit. Is he a pit bull?
He's not a pit bull. He's a cross between a bulldog and a staffy, but I can see what you mean. They look very similar.
Yeah. My son had a pit bull until recently. He had to put her down, but she was, they have a bad reputation, but it's by how they're raised. It is not
100%.
My 3 cats intimidated my son's pit bull. She would literally sit in a corner and not move if she came over.
And I think it's just the way they look to some people. So some people are scared because they look so muscly and powerful. And don't get me wrong, they're very powerful dogs. But if they're raised right, they won't hurt a fly. So my youngest is 6 years old. She loves Reggie, and Reggie plays with her. And he's more gentle with her because he knows that she's young.
Right.
But it's the owners, and there's a lot of that going around in the UK. I didn't want that to be a sort of focus of this live, but there's lots of they call them XL bullies, is what they call them in the UK, and they've just brought out a law where if they're classed as an XL bully, so anything with that shape of head, so a pit bull would fall into that. Right. If they're above 21 inches from paw to shoulder, and they have that shaped head, they class them as an XL bully.
Clyde is my biggest one.
Oh,
he is 3.5 feet tall.
Wow.
He's 3.5 feet tall and he weighs 30 pounds.
Wow, it's like a mini tiger.
He is.
Yeah, I was saying the XL bully law, because if they just go over that height from paw to shoulder, they class them as an XL bully, which means they need to be registered as a dangerous dog. They have to wear a muzzle at all times outside. And I think it's just cruel. I think every 5 years they pick on a new breed. So Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Dobermans, and it's all based on, for me, the gang youth culture who try and pick a breed that looks as vicious as possible. But I think it's the owners, and it should be the owners that get put down, not the dogs.
Exactly. And here in the US, there are many apartment complexes and even cities and counties where you're not allowed to even own a pit bull.
Really?
Now, with me and my son, his pit was registered as an ESA, a service dog, emotional support animal.
Yeah.
And they're not allowed to discriminate in that case.
Okay.
So, but if they're not, then there's some apartments that you can't even get into because they don't allow those breeded dogs. And it's the pit bulls, the German Shepherds, the Dobermans, the Belgian Malinois, which is a police dog. They use it in police work.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, and this is the thing with regards to the breeds that are a bit like bull terriers, if you like, which are that sort of build. Back in the war days, and this is something that my dad told me, they were like the poster campaign dog for a family dog, because they would protect the children and they would protect the family. And it's just gone completely full circle now. And it is sad. And don't get me wrong, I think given the wrong training and not brought up correctly, they can be as violent as a weapon. But it's the owner's fault, not the dogs. And I think that's the thing, because I've met Rottweilers that are as soft as anything. I've met Dobermans, I've met pit bulls, and it's not the dog's fault. That I don't think they naturally just flick a switch and turn nasty one day. I think it's how they've been brought up, and that's the sad thing, really.
Well, yeah, my son's pit, she got out of the yard the one day, and my son was at work, and he commutes a day to go for work. Yeah. And this captain in the military, because we live in a very military town, captain in the military saw her running down the street, opened up her car door, and Ziva jumped right in. No problems. She called my son because she, of course, had the tag with his name and number. Yeah. And she said, he's like, could you possibly keep her until I get off work? And she's, oh, yeah, she's fine. She's great. She's a loving dog. But what kind of person pulls up, sees a pit bull running down the street and opens up their car door for
I don't get me wrong, it can be a risk, because there are some that let's be honest, that have been brought up wrong and usually abandoned, I think, when they go nasty. But it's like I watch. I've always been into sort of animal charities and rescuing animals, because I've always had a passion for animals. And when I watch those videos, it makes me really sad, because the ones that have to be put down for being violent usually have had such a terrible upbringing that if we'd been brought up like that, we'd be exactly the same, and I think that's the sad thing.
Unfortunately, a lot of people use those breeds for dog fighting.
Yeah.
Where am I in my house? And do I craft? Yes, I am. I live in a studio apartment, and I don't know if you guys know what that is if you're from the UK. Do you guys?
Is it like where it's sort of one floor and everything's in the one apartment?
It is. It's a single floor, but you see my bed right here?
Yeah.
This is the main room for a studio, which means your living room, your bedroom, and sometimes your kitchen is all in one
bigger room. Yeah.
Right. Now I have a separate kitchen, which is this door right here that you see.
Yeah.
That is separate, and my bathroom is this way.
Yeah.
So what I'm in right now, where I'm at, this is my craft area. I have a 6-foot folding table, one of those that you would take to like craft shows and art shows. Yeah. I have a 6-foot and a 4-foot. My 4-foot is where you guys see me do my videos and my resin, right over here.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing, because it just shows you don't need that much space to do it, to get involved. And it's like me. I've moved it behind me now, so I've got like a 4-foot set of drawers, and I do everything on there basically.
Yeah, I actually have. If you go on, I have a recent kind of tour of my apartment here.
Okay.
And I show you my front door is right here. Yeah. And it's a half glass, half wood front door. And then so this place was originally base housing. It was built in like the 1950s.
Okay.
Literally, the base is my backyard. And that's why sometimes you'll hear I'll make a comment about being bombed. It's the military. They're bombing me. They were bombing me this morning.
So what do they do? Is it like a military test area?
Yes. Right. The base in Killeen, Texas here goes all the way around the city.
Okay.
So I am so close. I hear reveille 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night.
Yeah.
And then when they're setting off their artillery and their bombs, it's all out back right here. So sometimes it gets as close as my house shakes.
Yeah. I bet it's interesting though as well. I bet it's better than just watching leaves blow by your window at times.
Oh no, I get the helicopters, the artillery, the bombs. I get it all.
That's amazing.
And then out front, it's a neighborhood that nobody knows about, because the main drag is like out this window right here, out that window. Right. That is the main drag through Killeen. Well, this is just a little spout off, one way in, one way out. Nobody knows we're back here. But this all used to be part of the base. And so what they did is they bought up, when the base gave up these houses and built new ones.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of developers buy these. And what they do is, like, this one is a duplex. It used to be a single house. but now it's a duplex, and they divided it in half.
Yeah.
And so it's 2 studios now instead of.
They do that a lot in the UK at the minute, mainly for student properties, if I'm being honest. It's like where I live in Nottingham, every building that becomes derelict is just converted into like 20, 30 student properties because they make more money out of housing a lot of students in one property. And it's amazing that they fill them.
Yeah, I mean, this street out here is so narrow that if we get the garbage truck back here and somebody's trying to go out, they have to wait for each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why nobody knows we're back here. And
well, that can be a good thing, though, as well. It makes it more private sometimes.
Oh, definitely. There's only like 15 of us that live back here.
Yeah.
That's it. We have a couple of these duplexes like this. And then there's 2 houses, and there's a little bit of an apartment back at the cul-de-sac, and that's it.
I think Tori from Wicked Greek Geek Creations is actually saying that she knows exactly where you are, that her brother was there. So
yeah,
there we go.
Yep.
Small world.
It's full military town. I mean, most people are here, were stationed here, and they stayed. That's what happened with my son. He got stationed here, and then he came out of the military, and they just stayed because the kids were all in school and everything. So
yeah, makes sense. And do you know what? There's some. It's like in the UK. I know a lot of I was briefly in the RAF when I was younger, and all of the RAF bases as well. It's a very military community around them, which I think is great because it's people that understand the military sometimes as well, which makes a big difference.
Right.
And especially when they're coming out of the military, to create opportunities for those people to get back into civilian life, I think you'd call it.
Yeah, my son got out of the military. He was in 17 years, did 4 tours of Iraq and Afghanistan. And he is now gone back to college to become a psychologist to help veterans.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because he has emotional, he's got some mental illness problems with PTSD.
Yeah. Well, we can go into that in a minute, actually, because obviously that's the main topic. And I think it is important. And again, don't get me wrong, I did basic training in the RAF. I wasn't in there for any length of time. But in that time, it was bizarre because there was one of the people in my flight, they called it, committed suicide. And he had already been in the army for 4 years. So you would think that he would be used to what it would be like. But I've got another friend who worked with me in what I do in recruitment who did a couple of tours. And what really messed him up is he saw people he knew that were friends and literally blown up in front of him. And that, I think, to see things like that, to the normal public, you don't think that things like that actually happen, but they do.
Yeah. My son he went in at 17. I had to sign papers for him to go in.
Right.
After he got out of basic, they went ahead and his orders were for Hawaii. He was stationed in Hawaii for 10 years. But one of the first things they did was ship him off to Iraq. He was one of the ones that went into the mosque looking for bin Laden, and his entire the people on either side of him as they entered were blown up. They were killed.
Right.
So he doesn't talk about it a lot.
You don't realize what an impact that can have. I mean, I've never experienced it, but just from because I've always been quite close with people that I've worked with and things like that, and the stories that he told me, and the fact that he could come back into civilian life, I suppose, and put that behind him was amazing. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that I know suffer with different mental illnesses when they leave the forces, where they just can't function normally anymore because of what they've had to experience.
He has a very hard time holding down a job because he will just blow up.
Yeah.
And unless you have somebody who understands that and can deal with that, you don't last very long.
No, and that's that. So again, I've known many friends that have been in the forces, and when they've done any period of time, when they come out, that's a common theme where they struggle with things like anger management. And it's like, I've been on nights out before where somebody's just bumped into somebody, all of a sudden that something triggers in the head and they're like throwing glasses at people. I'm like, whoa, you can't do that. But I think it's the automatic reaction, what's trained into them.
It is. And
so
that's not even the reason that I wanted to talk about mental health. I mean, it's one of them, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm disabled. I struggle with my own issues. But just so you guys understand, I am not a counselor. I am not a psychiatrist, psychologist. I'll give you a little bit of background. I was a law enforcement instructor for over 10 years. I was the only non-officer instructor. My specialty was domestic violence and elder abuse. And then I was a paralegal for another 15 years after that, a nationally certified paralegal. So I come from a law background on both sides. But one of the things that happened when I became a reseller is we did, and if you go back, you will see there, it's at the very beginning of when I started reselling, but we were always on a lady's channel named Donna. And she, we did it every Tuesday night. There were either 4 or 5 of us, depending on the night, that went on her channel and we sold.
Yeah.
And she was always very active, online, making sure we always had the links in time. That's why StreamYard is natural to me, because that's what we all used with StreamYard. And so the one week after we got off on Tuesday night, we stayed in the green room, as we called it, in the back where you can talk privately, without the whole chat. And we were talking, and then everybody went their way. And during that next week, I was kind of like, I was the newest person to her. So I didn't know her very well, but in the weeks that I had been on her channel, like, we always got emails from her. We always, she always had the link set up days in advance.
Yeah.
And, it was the weekend before our Tuesday night, and I hadn't heard anything. And so I started asking the others, have you heard anything from her? This is kind of weird, And finally, we found somebody who had the name of her daughter, and they ended up contacting her daughter and saying, something wrong with your mom? Is she sick? What's going on? And her daughter went over to her house, and she was found dead. And
really?
She was still logged in to our Tuesday night chat.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, her daughter wasn't real happy with us. Not like we could have done anything.
No.
But she, you got to have somebody to blame. So
you have, and I think, do you know what? Mental illness is one of those that it's not talked about a lot. It's a bit taboo still. And I think, don't get me wrong, there's very different levels as well. And that's what not a lot of people understand. And I mean, again, people don't know it about me, but my mother was a paranoid schizophrenic. And again, that's a very severe form of mental illness.
Definitely.
And unfortunately, it caused her to have suicidal thoughts a lot of the time. And in the end, I lost her when I was 26. And she ended up committing suicide. But again, I still remember growing up as a child when she would be manically low. And I don't want to use the word, but she would do things that you wouldn't expect a mother to do. And it was like, I still remember when I was 8 years old, she set the house on fire with all of us in it because she thought the devil was inside the house. And to her, in that moment, that was real.
Exactly.
There was no questions about it. That was real in her head. And I think that's the thing that some people don't realize. And I think some of it's the Z generation, the new generation coming through, where they'll be feeling a bit low one day and need a week off work. And they put that down to things like mental illness. A lot of the time, I don't think that is. I think it's a way to get out of work. And actually, there's some people out there with severe depression, severe anxiety. And it's a serious topic because I think that's one of the great things about having a creative outlet like resin, like you've said you love, is it allows you to focus your thoughts. And for a lot of people that suffer with mental illness, that's part of the problem, is the thoughts that enter the head on a constant basis. And actually, just by doing something creative, they can focus the thoughts on that project just for that period of time and block that out. So that's where I think it helps a lot of people. But it's one of those topics that I think if you talk to people openly about it, you'd be amazed at how many people know somebody or are related to somebody that has had severe problems with mental illness. And that's why I think it is an important topic. So again, I'm glad you brought it up.
I have dealt with, since I can't say diagnosis, I was diagnosed when I was 28 with RA and lupus.
Right.
They told me that I would be in a wheelchair within 2 years. Yeah. I had little kids back then. I was like, I don't have time for this. Quit, stop. I'm still not in a wheelchair. Am I close? Yes, I am very close. Because my lupus in 2015 became so severe I could not hold down a job. There was just no way.
Yeah.
Lupus is different for everybody. I've talked about it on my channel. I think there's even a video that's called Let's Talk About Lupus. Because a lot of people don't understand it, because there isn't one thing that happens with all people. Lupus decides what it wants to attack in each person's body, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
My lupus has attacked, initially it was attacking my spinal cord, which is why they said I would end up in a wheelchair.
Right.
I also not only now the spinal cord, but it's attacked my vocal cords. I've gone without a voice for 3 months at a time.
Wow.
And absolutely no voice whatsoever. And I'm always wondering, when does it just get so bad that it doesn't come back?
Yeah.
So, my voice has changed over the years. I also have, it's attacked my eyes, my mouth, my teeth, everything. And it started and now it's on a hell ride, let me tell you. It doesn't want to stop. And
well, all credit to you that you're still obviously doing your videos and things, because again, that probably takes a lot for you to do that, which people probably don't appreciate when they first tune into a video.
It keeps me sane. It keeps me sane.
Yeah.
Because what else am I going to do? Sit in this room and feel sorry for myself? I can't do that,
No. And I think a lot of people in chat are saying at the minute, actually, is the same thing. That I think Lula from Nerd Goblin Art I saw go up through the chat, and she said painting kept her sane. Most of us, in some ways, and don't get me wrong, I'm quite lucky that I think in my life I've gone through my worst experience, and I'll never forget it, in 2007. And if I was to suffer badly with things like mental illness or suicidal thoughts, I would have done it then. So I treat that as a blessing that everything happened to me all at once and I came out the other side, which I think makes you stronger as you go on. But again, I know there's that many different sort of people out there where they haven't experienced something bad in their life yet. And then when it happens, so they lose a loved one or something like that, then all of a sudden it's like the whole world's closed in. And I think that's where people need to start thinking about how they can keep themselves healthy mentally, because you need that. You work hard 8 hours a day normally, some people more. Then you get home. Then you've normally got lots of jobs to do at home. You need to give yourself some time to you to focus on things like your mental health to keep you positive. And I think it's easy to say have a positive mindset. If somebody's suffering from a severe bout of depression or mental illness, they can't just flick a switch and be positive. Sometimes they need support to help them out of that as well.
Easier said than done is what I always say,
Definitely.
And I think the worst time for me was when I had to file for disability. I was embarrassed. I wanted no part of it. I wasn't raised like that to take, help from the government or anything like that. I'm still embarrassed. I don't leave my house a lot, because if I go, I have my groceries delivered. I'm embarrassed to use a walker in public.
Do you know
Sounds
what, though?
stupid.
I think you should rethink that, because from what you told us earlier on in this live, you had a very good career where you were putting money into that system, and that's what it's supposed to be there for if you need it to take it back out. So I think you
And
need to change your mindset on that.
Oh, I do, but it's very hard because I wasn't raised like that. You know, I came from a military family. You know, you didn't take help from the government.
Yeah.
And it was, and my mom and my son always tell me, there are little kids that have to use wheelchairs and walkers. I get it. Doesn't make it register in my head that you need to get over this shit.
I think with regards to obviously what you're referring to in disability and taking money off the government and things like that, personally, and this is just my view, so apologies if anybody disagrees with this when you watch it back, I think the only people that should be, I suppose, embarrassed with that are people that have never put into the system, or people that just try and manipulate the system. And there's a lot of those out there, and I think they're the ones that should be embarrassed. People that are genuinely disabled or can't work, whether that's through mental illness, whether that's through physical disabilities. So my sister, she had spina bifida and cerebral palsy, so she was literally in a wheelchair like that when from a young age. And she, don't get me wrong, she worked really hard to be able to use something called conductive education to walk again. And she did, which was amazing. But again, people like that, you can't expect them to hold down a full-time job. No. And that's what the government should be there for, to support those people. But all too often you find that people look for ways to manipulate that system and try and take more out than what they're owed for a start, and try and utilize it to not, because they're too lazy to work. And I think they're the ones that should be a little embarrassed, not the ones that genuinely need it. So that's about you shifting that mindset, I think.
No, it is. But I also have the, and I don't know if you guys use this term in the UK, but invisible disability.
Okay.
So that's Bear.
Yeah, I can just see at the top. Yeah.
Invisible disability is something that necessarily can't be seen, but you are disabled.
Yeah.
People look at me and they say, you're just fat. And if you weren't fat, you wouldn't have to use a walker. You wouldn't have to use this. You wouldn't be disabled, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
People, I have been on steroids for 30 years. It's taken a toll on my weight.
Yeah.
No doubt. But people don't see that. So
no. People prejudge, and that's the problem. A lot of people, they look at somebody and they've already made a judgment before they even talk to that person. And I think that's part of the thing that's wrong with modern society. We don't talk enough. We look on social media, we make judgments based on a picture usually, rather than actually getting to know the person. And I think that's where I'm fortunate, the way that I sort of grew up. It wasn't the traditional way. I lived abroad, so I had to learn a different language, learn a different culture, meet people, get to talk to people, and get to know people. And that's from all walks of life. And again, when I was younger, I used to volunteer with disabled children because my sister was disabled, and I loved doing that. And it gave me an understanding which most people don't have, that actually just because you've got a disability, you're still human for a start. And actually some of those, it's amazing to watch what some disabled people can do. And it obviously all depends on the disabilities, but then they can live full, normal lives the same as everybody else. But people just stereotype them and categorize them in a box, which is where sometimes they wish people just wouldn't treat them differently, treat them like a normal person.
Yeah. I wouldn't, just because I'm having to use a walker doesn't mean that, I'm not a human.
No, I agree 100%. So talk to me more about resin then. So you said that you loved resin, so that's why you came back into resin. What is it about resin?
The fact that I have no control over it because I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
When I was working, I always did, everything had to be on point. I was very critical of what I was doing, what other people were doing under my command and stuff. And Resin, yeah, it'll kick you in the butt the first time you think that you've got this down pat. So I really think
That's part of the fun, though, is when you get a few failures and then finally it does what it should do, you're like,
correct.
wow, I've got it. And sometimes it takes a few mistakes to get there, and we still make them. That's the beauty of it. No matter how long you do it, I think you're always going to make mistakes because the resin will move the way it wants.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been doing it. Let's see, I went on YouTube, I think 2019. So probably 2017, I started doing resin and didn't know anything about YouTube, had no clue whatsoever. And there were a couple people that I watched on YouTube. And they were the one person, you can't be up here, mister.
He's more than welcome on the live. Hello, Bear.
Bear Bears. I know, I love you too, but they were doing a charity event.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, I have all this, I have these resin pieces. Remember, you got to get down. Yes, you do. And I contacted him. I said, would you like some resin pieces to put into because they were doing an auction for charity. And they were like, yeah, but you're going to be coming on and talking about them. And I was like, okay. I had to figure out YouTube real quick.
Yeah. It's the best way, though. Just dive straight in.
Yeah. And I'm not a nervous person in that way because I've always, like I said, I was a law enforcement instructor. I was a paralegal. I was used to dealing with the public. Public speaking, was never a problem. So, I was like, okay, well, if I can figure out the ins and outs of YouTube,
I think it's a different kind of nerves, though, on camera, because when you do it and you publish that video, that's when I get nervous when I click publish, because you start thinking, will it get views? Will people like it? Will I get nasty comments on it? And you start overthinking it in your head sometimes. And I think that's when I get nervous, not when I'm filming, because that's, for me, that's my favorite part. It's doing the creating part. And I love that bit. But it's actually, can you hear my breathing too much or things like this after I've clicked publish? But I've learned to control that now. And I just think, do you know what? I'm going to do the videos the way that I want. People like it. Brilliant. They'll watch it. If they don't, then they can find somebody else to watch. And I think that's the best way to be, really. But it's a different kind of nerves, because it's not nerves about necessarily what you're doing in the video. It's what happens after. Yeah.
And that was, I was like, nobody's going to want to watch this, because everybody kept telling me, oh, you should do it live. You should do it live, or you should videotape it when you're pouring and all this stuff. And I was like, who wants to watch that crap?
Yeah.
The first person I ever found that did resin on YouTube, and this was probably 2019, was Artsy Madwoman. Her name is Heather. She no longer does resin. She is now a carpet sculptor.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, she went from when I came back to resin, she was actually the first person I looked for.
Yeah.
And I saw she was doing carpet sculpting, and I'm like, what? And so I messaged her. I'm like, Heather, when did you quit resin? And she's like, oh, about a year ago, I became carpet sculptor. And I'm like, that's a big change, but okay.
It is. It's still creative, though.
Yeah.
But actually, some of the older channels, and I'm not saying old, but sort of 7 or 8 years ago, I think there was a bit of an interest in resin when it started, really. And some of those channels came up with certain techniques and things like that. So I've gone back to look at the original videos where they came up with those techniques, and they've stopped doing the videos 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And if you go back to some of her videos, she has some really cool stuff that she was doing with resin back then, which,
Oh, Tracy used to love Heather, so Tracy knows Heather.
Okay, so Tracy knows who I'm talking about. Yeah. I watched her, and I'm trying to think who else was. It's nobody that I currently watch.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of somebody else who was back then. But when I came back, the first person I found was Michelle.
Okay.
Glitz and Glitter.
Glitz and Glitter, yeah.
Yeah, and so
She
I
was
was
great
like,
on the live last week as well. So
right.
if anybody hasn't watched that and wants to see Michelle real life with Don, go back to last week's and watch it. It was great.
Yeah, she is. Her and Dawn cracked me up, and that was one of the things I really enjoyed watching. And then I was like, back in the day, we didn't have heat mats and bubble removers and vacuum chambers. And I'm on her channel, and she's like, oh, an hour later, and I'm demolded. I was like, what kind of black magic is this?
Yeah.
And then she would talk about her vacuum chamber and the heat mat, and I'm like, wait a minute, this changes everything.
You don't need any of that. And the video's going live in a couple of weeks. This little paperweight that I made was actually from some sushi packaging.
Yeah.
So I got one of those meal deals from Tesco's, and I saw this design, which is basically like Oriental clouds.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put resin in that and see what happens. And that's what people used to have to do before Temu came out and before all of these fancy molds were available.
Yeah, and I do not have room for a vacuum chamber. There's no way I'm ever going to, get one.
Yeah.
And I don't have a bubble remover. The only thing I bought the Let's Resin mixer.
Okay.
Because of my arthritis, it was, mixing big batches of resin, and I only use it for big batches,
Yeah.
And I found a heat mat on Temu for $10, and I bought that. And those are really the only two new things.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy. Yes, I have had my hair cut. Thanks for noticing.
But yeah, I mean, I've used a bunch of different varieties of resin. I'm pretty attached to Bond Crafter at the minute,
Okay, I've not heard of that one. I don't think I've seen it in the UK, that one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've not heard of that.
It's really good. I mean,
is it Bond
no,
Craft?
No bubble remover. Bond Crafter, yeah. Bond, BONDCRAFTOR, not ER.
Okay.
And
I'll have a look.
It started with, and I think Tim started, well, he may have had Bond Crafter before, but I won a 3-pack of their UV resin.
Okay.
300 milligrams, and I started using it. And back in the day, I didn't use UV resin. I hated it. It was, to me, it didn't ever set up right. You couldn't add so many colorings to it. And back then, you didn't have very much options for colorings, So I had a really bad taste in my mouth about UV resin, but they sent me some, and I was really impressed with it. And then I was talking to Lily. I don't know if she talks to everybody that wins or not, but she contacted me and asked how I liked using it. And I said, actually, I hated UV resin until now, kind of thing. Yeah. And she was like, oh, let me send you a package. And a couple of days later, I get a 38-ounce pack of their resin, the one to win. And then the next day, I get 2 gallons of their resin. And I was like, what? So yeah.
That would last you a while.
Yeah, I just broke into my 2 gallons.
Yeah.
I just started using, I opened it day before yesterday. So yeah.
Well, that should hopefully last you a little while.
Yeah. I think
unless you do what I do and then start doing bigger projects. As soon as I buy bigger gallon tubs, that's it. My mind goes crazy and I think, right, I'm going to do a table. I'm going to start looking at river pours and all of that. But that would use a lot more.
Definitely. Oh yeah, I poured 16 ounces this morning.
Yeah.
And my video, I was uploading it at the beginning of this, so it's uploaded now.
Okay. No, it'd be interesting to look at. Just quickly, because Rin's asking a question actually in the chat. She's asking how to get on the Discord group. Rin, most of us hang around in the Crafty YouTubers Discord group. And if you send Tracy from Miniscenes an email, which I think is just Tracy at MiniscenesGB, she can give you access to that group. It has to be via an invite link. But whilst you're here and listening, Rin, as well, you need to get in there to send me your address, because you won my members giveaway. I don't know if you've watched that video or not, but you won my members giveaway this month. So you've got 2 coasters that I need to post to you.
Yeah, and the Discord group is a lot of fun. I mean,
it is. And do you know what? It's very supportive. That's what I love about it. It's obviously monitored because there's a lot of us in there all the time, which is great, right? Because we don't allow people to be bullying or anything like that. It's just pure supportive, and that's amazing.
Bear's back.
It's almost like he sat on top of your head.
Yeah, he likes to go for rides, so he sits on the back of my chair and hopes that I'll take him for a ride. We're not doing rides right now.
Yeah, Rin, just because you clearly haven't gone back and watched that video, you've got 2 of these 3D Bloom, almost lace effect coasters ready to be posted to you. So now you know what you've won.
You're going to cry, really? Go lay down with your brothers.
But is there anything else you wanted to say with regards to sort of mental health? Is there anything else you wanted to sort of discuss about it? I know you've done some preparation.
I have numbers for you guys. And one of them was a shocker to me. One of them was. I'll just go through them quick so that we can compare population, because I did US and UK. It's a lot harder to find stuff on you guys because apparently your government doesn't put out the ridiculous amount of propaganda that ours does. We have 340 million. You guys have 68 million. Crafters in the UK, 19.5 million. And according to the US, we have half of our population that are crafters.
Wow.
Yeah. Disabled, because my thought was that more disabled people turn to crafting as a way. That's not what the numbers show. I was shocked. So in the UK, 16.1 million have a disability. That's about 24% of your population.
Okay.
In the US, we have about 19% of our population. No, I'm sorry, wrong answer. Our population is 21 million. Okay. 19% of all disabled adults consider suicide, and that is both the UK. The numbers are really close, UK and US.
Right.
And only 9% of disabled turn to crafting. I thought that number would be a lot higher.
And don't get me wrong, again, going on personal history, I know my sister was very much into craft because it was something that she could try and do. Obviously, she couldn't do a lot of things because of her disabilities, but I think that's probably why it's lower, because of the disabilities preventing some people from doing crafts.
It might be. But I just thought, most disabled people would probably turn to something like that, but apparently not. Now, I have some really conflicting studies here.
Okay.
And I was like, what in the world? How are these two things so far apart? But according to the US, crafting improves, it lowers your blood pressure, improves your mental health, boosts your self-esteem, helps people connect with others. It improves your motor skills, your problem solving, stress relief, improves your mood, improves depression, and it releases serotonin, which is a natural antidepressant.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you look at a study that Australia did, and this one was straight out of, it's from the Australian Institute for Suicidal Research and Prevention. They say that regular YouTubers on a regular basis, they have a 29% higher levels of depression, anxiety, and loneliness.
Wow.
Complete opposite.
Yeah.
And that YouTube's algorithm will actually recommend suicidal related content and spread misinformation and promote suicide. And because of the environment online is filled with harassment and cyberbullying.
Well, I saw a different study, and it wasn't on YouTube, but it was on TikTok, where somebody set up a profile just as a 14-year-old girl, nothing else. That's all they put. And the first videos they started getting through were about depression and suicide, which I think's a bit shocking, really. Another one they set up with I think it was a 13-year-old boy, and they started getting fight scenes and knife fights and crime and stuff automatically coming through. And that was all through TikTok. They didn't put any interest in or anything. It was just the gender and the age. And that was scary to me when I first saw that.
It's very scary.
But that's what the algorithm feeds it automatically. It just doesn't make sense.
That's what Australia is saying happens with YouTube, is it actually feeds those. And, TikTok, of course, I tried to find numbers on TikTok, and they don't publish their numbers. So I couldn't find anything that was relevant on TikTok. But suicide in 2022, this was the only year that I could find both US and UK for. US 49,000 suicides in 2022, which is 1 every 11 minutes.
Okay.
And in the UK, 7,055 deaths were suicide. So you guys have a 19 per day.
Wow.
Now,
and actually, I saw some research on that as well. And what might surprise you is there's a higher number of suicides in middle-aged men.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And that shows that. And I think it's sometimes because men don't like to talk about mental illness or what they're struggling with. And I think it's quite sad, but it's a true fact that, again, men, they always feel that responsibility. And when things go wrong at that time in life, I think it's a case of rather than talking to somebody, they look for a way out, which is really sad. And I think it surprised me, the stats, when I saw those.
And just talking general mental health in the UK, 1 in every 4 people experience mental health issues each year. In the US, 22.8%, which equivalents 58.7 million people, are in that same category, experience mental health issues every year.
Wow.
That's a big number. In 2021, again, this was the only year I could find both US and UK. In 2021 in the US, 21 million were diagnosed with some form of mental health issue. And in the UK, 751,000 people were diagnosed. And guess who has the highest? This was just a side note that I found in my research. Any guesses as to which country has the highest depression rate?
I don't know, actually. That's a strange question. I don't know who would have the highest.
Afghanistan.
Really?
Yep. They have the highest depression rate of anybody in the world. It was just a weird fact that I found.
Yeah, that's very, very strange. But I suppose it's it's one of those things where I think it affects everybody differently, and I think that's why my biggest advice to anybody, male, female, young, old, whoever you are, if you're feeling those kind of thoughts, talk to somebody, because
Yeah.
again, it might not even be it might be something that can be fixed as easily as it could be something to do with your hormones are off balance. And I know people that have had to get medication for it, and that's just solved it like that. And then all of a sudden they're back to normal. So it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And I think it's a case of just talk about it to your friends, to your family.
Yeah.
If you don't have friends and family, which, let's be honest, some people don't,
No.
find a group of people to talk to and ask for help. If you ask for help, you will get people that want to help.
That's what I'm hoping will happen with this group, is that, you know, it will be a safe place to talk about these things, because I think we need it. I think everybody needs it.
Yeah.
And here's the stat for YouTubers. Now, TikTok and Instagram, they do not have stats on this, but 300 out of every 1,000 YouTubers have a disability.
Okay.
So, any idea what country has the most YouTubers?
America, I would say.
Wrong.
Oh, wow.
India.
Oh, India as well. Yeah, it's huge over there.
Yeah. Yep. They actually the UK 476, or I'm sorry, India has 476 million YouTubers, and US is the second with 238 million.
Yeah.
Now, here's an interesting stat on US YouTubers. The most active, and I could not find this for England. I tried for the UK at all. I could not find this at all. YouTubers, the most active users come from California at 235 million, Texas at 150 million, and Florida at 130 million.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I said, I couldn't find the UK stats at all.
I think you'd struggle because it's such a small geographical area.
Yeah, and you guys don't put as much stuff as the US.
No, I think usually when they put it into categories for the UK, they'll just do England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and they'll sort of split it into those four. They won't actually look at different demographical areas like the Midlands and things like that. Right. So it makes it a bit more difficult. I think the good thing with the states is because it's so large and you've got so many states, they can do it by state quite easily.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Texas is number 2 and California is number 1.
No.
Florida was, I don't know if I expected Florida, but it makes sense.
It's not one of the largest states, actually, is it, Florida?
No. But you have a very mixed population that moves down there. A lot of retirees move down there, which you wouldn't think would contribute to the YouTube population.
But that's where you're wrong. I think the YouTube population's getting older. So as people grew up with YouTube, so I still remember YouTube when it first came out, whenever it did. And actually now it's the second biggest search engine in the world, I think, only behind Google. And it's because as the younger generation are aware of YouTube, and I think we're getting older, first place we go if we want to learn how to do something is YouTube.
Yeah.
And I think it's only natural that it's getting older and older. Which
I think the younger generation goes to TikTok.
Yeah, could be.
But the Gen X community in TikTok is on the move.
Yeah.
And not in a nice way. They are taking the reins and kicking the the younger generation's butt in YouTube.
Yeah.
And it was all over something stupid. It started this
But
rage between the two generations.
Really, I think with YouTube though, as a whole, I think what I love about it is there will always be a certain demographic which has a certain interest. So it's like my kids, they love like Mr. Beast and stuff like that. And they love watching. There's just I get up on a Sunday morning when I've got the girls, and it's just some really annoying blonde-haired lady screaming at the camera. And I'm like, how can you watch this? And what amazes me is when the younger generation choose, rather than playing a game, a computer game, to watch somebody else playing a computer game. I can't get my head around that. I'm like,
I don't either. I don't understand.
You play it. That's what it's there for. Don't watch somebody else play it for an hour.
I know one YouTuber who loves to watch what is it? It's one of the war games. It's one of the big games. See, that's how much I know about games. But she goes on and actually watches them play, and I'm like, why? To me, that's not interesting. I saw somebody saying, where did I get all my information?
Yeah, Erica was asking that earlier on. I was going to come back to that.
I am a numbers nerd, so if it's out there, I will find it.
No, it's good. Do you know what? The more you research something, and it's the same with resin, to be fair, the more you research something, the more you build your knowledge, and it's amazing. It opens your mind to reality sometimes as well, doesn't it, as to what's actually happening. And again, with things like mental health and stuff like that, it's always been a bit of a taboo subject. But I actually think if you look into it, and you're not aware of it, you'd be surprised at how close it actually is to you and people that you know. And I think that's why it's important that more people have a knowledge for it, but also more people are actively there to support others that are struggling, because we all have low points in our lives. We will all have curveballs that we don't expect. And sometimes you're going to need support to get over that. Not everybody can do it themselves. And I think that's where it's very important that you let your loved ones and people that you know that if something goes wrong, don't panic, pick up a phone, talk to me, and we'll get it solved. There's always a solution. And I'm one of those people that I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. You just don't see it at that time. And everything, as long as there is a tomorrow, there's a chance that everything will turn around. No matter how bad your situation is, things can always turn around. And again, personal experience wise, in 2007, which I briefly mentioned earlier on,
we're having a windstorm right now. We got 40-mile-an-hour winds, and
wow,
it's crazy outside.
But no, I think personally, as I say, that moment I referred to earlier in 2007, I lost everything. So I got made redundant from my job. My mum died. I split up from a long-term relationship. She cost me my house, which had to get repossessed. Then I had to go bankrupt. And this was all in the space of 3 months. And I was like, and at that point, I've never been particularly close with the rest of my family, but I didn't have anybody else to turn to. Had it not have been for my dog at the time, I may have done something silly, but there's always an outlet, there's always somebody that you can talk to. And just by talking about things, you'll find a way through. And that's the thing. But if you choose to go the other way, then there's no way that you'll find a way through, because you won't be there. And I think that's the harsh reality, is just by talking to people, and even if you don't know them, there's often free phone numbers. I know there is in the UK. I'm sure there is in the States, where you can talk to a stranger about your problems, and they often won't advise you, but they'll listen. And I think that's the important thing, to just listen to people when they're in that sort of state, so that they can calm down a little bit. And then it's about talking to them about other options.
Yeah, I will tell you, one of my best friends on YouTube, and she and I both quit the reseller at the same time. We quit because neither of us could deal with the ridiculousness anymore. And she had become quite the alcoholic.
Right.
And she was not doing well. And I knew she wasn't doing well. I could see it every time we logged on together and stuff. You know, she had a small kid. And one day, I was like, listen, I got on the phone with her and I said, listen, you're going to lose your marriage, your kid. You're going to lose everything if you don't get your shit together. And I was just very upfront with her. She has now been 9 months sober, and I cannot be more proud of her.
Oh, that's amazing. And again, it's just by having that support, you know?
Right. And every time she posts, you know, 1 month sober, 2 months sober, whatever, she just posted 9 months sober, I'm always there to say, I am so proud of you. Yeah. Look at what your life is now compared to what it was.
And Tiffany's sharing the suicide and crisis number in the US is 988. So again, if anybody in the US needs it, it's there. I'm going to look up the one for the UK actually, because there is one whilst we're on this, just in case anybody's watching it back and needs that help.
Yeah, definitely. One of the reasons that I moved down here to be closer to my son and my granddaughters, I have a younger son that lives in Georgia. Okay. He's retired and he doesn't have kids, or he's not married, never been married, anything like that. But I knew that my son was struggling. Right. And so, you know, I started talking to him about, I really need to get out of this situation. You know, technically I'm married. I haven't seen him in 3.5 years.
Right.
You know, he told me to get out because he was tired of my medical issues, you know, even though he knew about them before we even dated, but whatever. Yeah. And it was a good thing for me too. And so my son and daughter-in-law started looking for a place, and they found this one, and he moved me down here, and I can talk to him. Like, his wife can't talk to him the way that I can talk to him, you know, and he's not afraid to tell me when something, you know, when he's having a hard time. And I think that it was important for me to come down here to help out with the kids and to make sure that he was okay too.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, and there's people in the chat sort of repeating this, but the biggest thing you can do for somebody that's struggling is just be there to listen, you know, and that 10 minutes or 15 minutes of your time could mean that person's still here tomorrow. And that's definitely where you've got to try and make time if you can. And I think that's the thing. And again, I think all too often in the modern world, we're all trapped in our own little bubbles. And actually, sometimes if you look outside of that, so maybe it's a neighbor that you haven't seen for a couple of weeks, knock on the door, just say, look, are you okay? I just wanted to check because I've not seen you, and things like that. But that's where I think there was more of a community in the past, and there isn't now. And don't get me wrong, in YouTube and the resin community, it's amazing. There's usually somebody there to talk to. I've vented before in the Discord. I've seen other people vent in the Discord. But if that helps, that's brilliant. And I think that's the key. It's just about listening to people and actually listening. So not ignoring. And I think that's where some people go wrong. They sort of switch off the ears and go on then. You've actually got to listen to what somebody's problems is. And if you can help and give advice, then do it. Yeah.
You know, and some people are willing to take that help and advice, and some people aren't. And you have to know who those people are too.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that you have a couple of types of people, and I know this is a touchy subject, but I think when it comes to the suicide thing, you know, you have the people, and this probably isn't going to go over well. It seems to be the younger generation uses that as a weapon. Like, they're not, you know, they're trying to get attention, whether it be attention from their parents.
Sometimes it is a cry for help.
Right. And sometimes it is. Yeah. But my experience with people who commit suicide are, they don't talk about it really.
No.
They don't.
No. And I'd agree. I think if it's somebody that's really struggling that bad, the last thing they do is broadcast it.
Right.
And they just do something which they often regret at a later point. But I
Right.
do think that even if somebody is broadcasting it though and they're struggling with it, I think it is a cry for help. So that is where you need to
I think
intervene and help.
I think it should be taken seriously no matter which way it is. But
Yeah.
you do, and I saw it in, because of what I did for work, that is a little skewed too, because I saw numerous victims of domestic violence who would cry that they were going to commit suicide if their spouse didn't come home, or whatever the case may be. And not only the victims but also the abusers used it too. I mean, I had many male abusers who were like, well, if she doesn't come back to me, I'm just going to commit suicide. That's the end of it. So I think that it can be used as that weapon, but I think you should always take it seriously. But I think that there are some people out there who don't use it in the right way.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And again, that's the same with everything though nowadays. And as we said earlier on in the show, it was a case of, I think some people don't appreciate the reality of mental health sometimes and use it as an excuse for various different things. And that's where actually, unless you know somebody that's gone through something with regards to mental health, you sort of think that everybody's like that when they start talking about mental health. And this is where it's important, again, not to categorize people. Know those people and know what they're actually going through, whether it be a mental health illness like schizophrenia, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety. And again, even with things like anxiety, most of us get anxious in life at certain things. But people with severe anxiety can't function at certain points when they get those panic attacks with that anxiety. And that's where there's different levels of it. And I think that's what it's important to realize as well.
Yeah. And you guys, and I don't know, you guys started like for the invisible disabilities. Do you know that wearing a sunflower is somebody with a disability that's invisible?
Yeah, I've heard that.
You started that.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
Yeah. Or it could just be somebody that likes sunflowers as well. But
well, it can be. But yeah, I mean, if you're out and somebody is having obvious trouble, like a panic attack or whatever, and they're wearing a sunflower, you need to look at them a little bit differently than you would. They do need help at that point.
Yeah, definitely, it could be.
And that all came from the UK in 2017, which I thought was very interesting.
Well, that's good. It's good. Something good came out of the UK, but but no, I think do you know what? It's gone over the hour now, so it's been brilliant having you on, and I think it's been brilliant talking about the topic as well. Because looking at the questions that we've had in chat and the people that have been talking in chat as well, it's something that affects most of us, and we just don't realize it sometimes. So it's great that you brought that to my to everybody's attention now. And if you're watching this back after and you're not subscribed to Laura's Design Studio, subscribe, because we need to get Laura over that 1,000 subscribers. I think when I last looked, you're at 486. I think it was.
I think I'm currently at 500 and some. And let me just address that.
I think I looked earlier on in the week.
568.
568. So let's get Laura over that 1,000. I think. So subscribe to that. Obviously, if you're not subscribed to my channel as well, please subscribe. It's always appreciated. And it's how we can keep growing. But also, anybody that's watching this back or anybody in the audience at the minute, if you want to come on the show, I'm looking for more guests and we can talk resin. We can talk about something different like tonight. We are a community at the end of the day, and it's great to get to know each other and sort of see the people behind the hands, as I call it in resin, and just continue to grow that community feeling. So reach out to me either in Discord, reach out again, put it in comments on here if you've got a YouTube channel and you're watching afterwards. I will email you back. We will schedule something in because it's something that I want to keep doing every week because it's something that I'm really passionate about. And I don't think anybody's done it properly yet, as in weekly, to get to know different artists almost every week and get to know the whole community. And that's what excites me, is how we're all going to keep on growing.
And I don't know if any of you know, I think it's Heartfelt Creations by Renee. She has started the back doing shout outs for various channels. She shouted out my channel, which I was very appreciative. I shouted out her channel because she's doing, I don't know if it's still going on or not, but she's got a giveaway that she was doing. So I shouted out hers because I think it was because she was over the 1,000 subscribers, but she didn't have the 4,000 watch hours. I was trying to help her get her watch hours.
And you know what? I think that's something we should all do more. You know, if we get inspired by somebody or you've learned something from somebody else, give their channel a quick shout out in your next video. It all helps because, again, the way the YouTube algorithm works until you get to be one of those big channels is people don't know you. They don't know who you are. They haven't seen you. So they don't know where to find your videos sometimes. And actually, just by somebody mentioning it or even tagging somebody in another video can make the world of difference to their channel. So I think we should all keep doing that for each other as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And last chance for any questions in chat before we close it out. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Michelle.
And if you guys have any questions about me, I'm an open book. Like I said, I've talked about lupus and everything else on my channel, so it's not like I hide stuff.
I think Tiffany's meaning thank you, Laura, there, but there we go. Unless I've missed a comment.
No, I think she was thanking Michelle.
Ah.
Yeah.
But no, it's been great as well. And obviously it was great to have Michelle on last week as well. And I think that was amazing in itself because, again, I've only recently got to know Michelle through these different videos. And actually she I don't know how she does it. She's a workaholic. She does like 18-hour days and gets a video out almost every day. So how she does that, I don't know.
I don't know. And I'm a member, and she even puts out member only stuff like a couple times a week sometimes. I mean, I'm like, where do you find time to even sleep?
Yeah. Well, again, that's the thing. And I think she said that she functions off 6 hours sleep a day. Yeah. I couldn't do that in my job. I'd be falling asleep at my desk, but it's.
I mean, I always think it's funny because a lot of the Discord is UK. So you guys are all going to bed. It's like right now it's 3:18 in the afternoon here.
Yeah.
So sometimes
we'll all be going to bed in about an hour.
Sometimes you guys all go to bed and I'm not even asleep yet when you guys start waking up and hitting the Discord again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't sleep a lot myself, but.
Well, you see, I'm one of those that I can go through weeks of unbroken sleep, which is amazing when that happens. And then all of a sudden I'll start getting too many ideas in my head. And then it just keeps me awake. And then I'll go through broken sleep for weeks at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we all struggle with that. But no, it's been brilliant having you on, Laura. It's been great getting to know you as well, because I know we've only had a couple of messages backward and forward. And again, it's not that scary. So let everybody else know if they want to come on. It's just a chat. And I think
I don't know. I don't know how the UK is with the whole 420 thing, but I'm assuming you know what that means.
No, depends what you mean by 420.
Devil's lettuce, marijuana.
Ah, okay, yes, I've heard of that.
I am a medical user.
Okay.
So, and that's why. Is it illegal in the UK? I don't know.
It is. Yeah, it's classed as a Class C drug at the minute in the UK. It's not legalized.
So what is Class C for you guys?
I think it's mainly cannabis is classed as Class C drugs. So again, if you're caught with it, you can be arrested. I'm fine.
You can be arrested and put in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, in the U.S. it goes by state. So I came from Oklahoma, which was medical marijuana. That's when I started. It was kind of funny because I had never even done that in my, high school days or anything.
Dee's actually saying it might be a Class B drug now in the UK. So
I
don't know. Although I've got again, this is a conspiracy theory, but they've also got a law in the UK where they're making it harder every year for you to buy normal cigarettes and tobacco. So every age, and by the time I think the younger generation now, by the time they get to 25, they legally won't be able to buy tobacco.
Oh, seriously?
And I think at that point, when that happens, they'll probably legalize cannabis or something to try and get a tax off something, because they're going to lose so much tax from the tobacco.
Well, my thing is the U.S. should just legalize it, because if you look at the state of Colorado, they are not hurting in their state in any way, shape, or form because they tax it. Yeah. Now, Texas, it's not legal, but it's been decriminalized here in Texas. Which,
And I think, don't get me wrong, I think I've got two views on it. I think for medicinal purposes, fine. I think if it helps, brilliant. And especially with things like depression, I know it can help and things like that. The problem is a lot of the time it leads to other things, I think. And I'm a bit old school with that, where I've seen relatives where they went from that to something a lot worse. And I think that's always the worry in my mind.
I definitely think it can, no problem. But for somebody like me, I was, according to our CDC, I was at the top and could no longer receive anything stronger than what I was taking. And it wasn't even touching it. So when it became medically legal in Oklahoma, my doctors suggested I try it. I was not happy with their suggestion, but eventually it got to the point where I just had to at least try it, and it works. Now I don't do it during the day. I only do it when I'm in the house for the night. I don't have to go pick up my granddaughters or anything like that. I do it strictly at night. And that's just to relax and hopefully get some sleep. Yeah. But the reason I brought up the 420 is because every year I have put on a 420 show. That's May 20th. Or I'm sorry, April 20th, 420. And so I didn't know if the UK was legal in that or not.
It's not, no, but I think that you might get a few people viewing now for that. But yeah, and don't get me wrong, I think most people over here, if they because it's still classed as illegal, they use is it CBD oil, I think, and things like that instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did try the CBD, and the CBD just for a pain standard wasn't work. And that's actually what's legal in Texas. We do have dispensaries, but they only they only dispense what's legal in Texas, which is the CBD with very little of the THC in it.
Yeah. Well, is that Bear again?
Oh yeah.
Bear wanted to come and say bye-bye to everyone.
Nobody wants to see your butt, Bear. Come on.
But no, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on. I think it's been a really important topic. So again, just if anybody out there is watching this and you need to talk to somebody is my biggest piece of advice. Doesn't matter who it is, just talk. And again, if somebody reaches out to you, just listen. That 10 minutes can make a big difference to them. And again, Lisa's saying, please give this a thumbs up. Again, if you give it a thumbs up, more people might view it, and hopefully we get the message out there a bit more as well.
Yeah, and I think you'll get a few, because in between going back into resin, I was doing a lot of paper crafting. And so a lot of my followers are still in that paper crafting realm, and they all work. So I think later tonight, I put it out on my channel that it was going to be available. So, and that they could watch on replay if they couldn't make it in. So.
Yeah, no, brilliant. And again, a lot of people I know don't watch this live, but come back and watch it after, which is great. And again, do you know what? If you find these useful, share them as well. That's something that so many people don't do, is share videos. But if you start sharing somebody's video, it starts growing like wildfire. And I think that's where I think we can all work on doing that more with each other's videos, so that it does spread, because so many people just can't be bothered to just click that share link and then paste it onto Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and it all helps get views and grow.
I heard somebody, I just saw somebody ask, what are edibles? They're gummies. Yep. They're gummies.
Are they like sweets that have cannabis in them?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I presumed, but I didn't know. I've heard of brownies with it in, but I've not heard of the sweets.
Yeah, they do have, well, now you can even buy butter with it in.
Really?
Correct, yeah. My highest viewed video is actually my other cat, Spike, him eating sun chips, cheddar cheese sun chips.
Okay.
Highest viewed video.
Yeah. Well, I need to get Reggie to actually do a resin project. If I could do that, it would get 1 million views. But
he'd go viral.
Yeah, maybe I see those fake ones where they're like eating and things like that. Maybe I could do one of those with resin with Reggie somehow. I don't know.
That'd be funny. And I bet you it would go viral.
Who knows? Who knows? Stranger things have happened. But no, it's been lovely having you, Erica. He's in his cage behaving, because otherwise he just jumps all over and knocks everything over. So he's behaving in his cage, and he was a little bit naughty earlier as well with the he was being Tigger a little bit too much. So he will get his cuddle before he goes to bed, and he will get a quick walk around the block first. But yeah, he is. Yeah, he's learning his lesson. But again, I don't know if you saw the last one that I did. I did a review on the air purifier. He's got a starring role in that one, so you get to see a lot of Reggie.
Yes, he did. I was like, oh, Reggie.
Yeah, he's great, but don't get me wrong, he is hard work. So again, if anybody's wanting a dog or looking at dogs, they are a tough breed. They're very energetic. It takes some strength, and you need to research them before you get one.
Does he throw tantrums?
He does. He gets grumpy sometimes, and he'll argue with me as well, which is hilarious. I'll tell him off, and he'll just start grumbling at me, and he's not growling. He's literally giving me back chat, which is amazing.
Yeah, that was my son's pit bull, Zeba. She would talk back constantly, and she did the little pity paw thing where she would stomp because she wasn't happy with something.
And I shared a picture the other day in Discord. You can tell when he's being stubborn because he gives you his stubborn look and will just sit there like that. And that's when you know he's not going to do anything. Right. Yeah. But no, I'll try and get him giving me back chat and include that in a video, because it's the first dog I've had where, and I've had dogs all my life, but it's the first one that I've had where he actually has an argument with me, and he's trying to argue, and it is hilarious. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, he's got the typical bad habits as well. So he'll go and eat, and then he'll come straight up to me in my face and then just burp in my face. And that's his little thing to say thank you. Yeah, they're a unique breed for sure. I wouldn't change him for the world, apart from calming him down a little bit. But he is great, and I think so he is still young. And I found out today, because I've done some research today. I spoke to my vets because, again, I've been thinking about having him castrated to calm him down. But apparently, and again, if anybody's thinking the same, it might be useful information. In the UK now, there's an implant, what you can get, which is less invasive, and it wears off after 6 to 12 months, and it releases the same hormones to reduce the testosterone levels, and it's meant to have the same impact as if you'd had them castrated. Really? Which I didn't know it existed until I spoke to my vets today. And again, it means that he can keep his manhood, which is nice for him. Right. But it also means if ever I wanted to breed him or anything like that in the future, it wears off after 12 months.
Barrett's now down here going through the garbage can, and my cats are plastic lickers. I don't know what it is. They love licking plastic.
Wow.
I'm like, get away from the plastic. Step away.
Yeah, Dee's just commented chemical castration. It isn't quite, because all it does is it reduces the testosterone level, which calms them down. And then after 6 to 12 months, it wears off. So again, what I'll probably do is have him on that for a couple of years, and then he'll be 3 or 4. So naturally he'll be calmer, hopefully.
Yeah, my son needs to do that. My oldest granddaughter last year for Christmas got a corgi.
Yeah.
That thing, he needs that. And I told my son, I said, are you ever going to have him taken care of? And he's like, well, we were trying to breed him first.
Yeah.
I said, he's out of control.
But again, it might be worth him looking into that, because if it's available in the UK, I'm sure it'll be available in the States. So speak to a vet and ask about it, because I didn't know until today speaking to them. But it's just like a microchip. They literally inject it just under the skin, and then it has the same impact and then wears off.
I don't know what it is, but corgis are, they say to wait till a certain age to breed them. So he's still in that not the right age category.
Yep.
And yeah, he needs some help.
Yeah. Yeah. But it might be worth asking, because as I say, they say it's 6 to 12 months and then it wears off and they can breed again as normal. So it might be worth him looking into that. So there you go. There's some advice I didn't think I'd be giving on this live. It just shows talking helps.
Dog mental health, hey.
Indeed. But no, it's been brilliant having you on again. So thank you for that. Thank you to everyone in the audience as well. Let's share it. Let's give it a thumbs up. Let's get it out there. And again, I'm looking for guests for the next 6 weeks. So get messaging, put something in comments, and we'll get it lined up. But lovely to meet you again, Laura.
I'm still working on Sheila for you.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Reptiles and resin.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. I've seen a couple of her videos actually. So yeah, and anybody with a YouTube channel, doesn't matter whether you're small, doesn't matter whether you're big, we want to meet all the artists. So again, anybody can come on. It'd really be appreciated. And we get to know you.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot, everyone. And thanks to you, Laura. And I hope the rest of your day goes well there.
Thank you. Bye, guys.